Julia Isaev, and I'm Client Relationship Manager on NSD. Today, during our workshop, we're going to talk about trade repository, current changes, and legislation. Today, here with me are Yulia Pryazhnikova. She represents financial stability department from Bank of Russia, and Ekaterina Abasheva and Julia Stepanova, who represent financial market development department. The colleagues will talk about trade reporting legislation, current legislation, and changes in Directive 3253. From NSD side, the workshop will take part Yana Sherbakova, who will tell us about access to NSD's trade repository for foreign clients. If you have any questions, you can send us during the workshop in the form under the video. So please welcome, and let's start. Julia?
Yes, thank you, Julia. So my presentation concerns some issues on international and national trends in repository activity. So let's begin from the beginning. So who is trade repository? Well, trade repository, it's a financial market infrastructure providing both trading services, collecting and electronic storing of OTC derivatives transactions data. So if we are looking at ECB definition, trade repository is a central registry of authoritative copies of open OTC derivatives trades. And CPMI and IOSCO definition provided in principles for financial market infrastructure. Trade repository defined as entity that maintains a centralized electronic record database of transaction data. So if we're looking at trade repository market functions, they are as follows. It's minimizing the information caused by means of centralized data storing, decreasing the financial losses during the clearing member bankruptcy by means of closeout netting, increasing the market transparency by means of price aggregated and trade volumes publicity. Decreasing transactions and transaction costs using clearing and netting of operations, and another function, it's decreasing financial instability risk by means of transparency of clearing members of balance position. So if we're looking at global regulation, international regulation of trade repository activity, we, of course, about the leader statement of G20. It was in Pittsburgh summit, September 2009. In order to improve OTC derivatives market, there were leader statements concerning such statements as all standardized OTC derivative contracts should be traded on exchanges or electronic trading platforms where appropriate and cleared through central counterparty by end 2012 at the latest. So, very important statement is OTC derivative contracts should be reported to trade repositories. And non-centrally cleared contracts should be subject to high capital requirements. And of course, it should be assessment, regulatory implementation, and improvement, transparency in the derivatives market, mitigate systemic risk and protect against market abuse. So, of course, also we know about the trade repository regulation in European Union. It is regulation number 648. And they call it EMIR, European Market Infrastructure Regulation. And in USA, the regulation concerning trade repository is provided in Dodd-Frank Act. So if we're talking about national legislation, national regulation, we can see at the Bank of Russia regulation, and the Bank of Russia functions as MIGA regulator as follows. Its repository registration, assessment of repository systemically importance, oversight, control of data accurate and complete, data monitoring and analysis, inspections, and enforcement actions. And of course, qualifying recognition, its inter-depository activity. Well, we have two repositories in Russia. It's National Settlement Depository and St. Petersburg Exchange. And trade repositories in the world, that NSD, it's rather young trade repository, and it was founded in 2013. And you can see here at the presentation the list of repository from global perspectives. Well, if we are talking about potential benefits for market participants, we can see that introducing such FMI like trade repository could lead to standardization of data record and storage. Transactions acceptance for legal purposes, and it's very important for us. And another one, clearinghouse's participation in netting, margining, and settlement. Of course, it's close-out netting, and it's very important for our financial market participants. And the last one, transparency improvement, indexes, prices, volumes, and positions. What about perspectives? First one, it's important to the repository, data control, margin calculation and margining, using close-out netting and OTC contracts, clearing and payment services. Of course, we need to provide very big work to make our repository very good repository, and right now we have some problems. For example, the problem concerns with data adequacy, safety, and completeness. And what solution could be? It could be development of qualifiers, increase of responsibility, data control, inspections, and penalties, of course. Another problem, operability of transaction accounting. And the solution could be transition from quarterly to daily frequency. Another problem is transaction costs of proposed clients. Solution could be decrease in operational loading by means of trace confirmation and reducing the number of fields. Clients feedback, and I think for NSD it's very important to have feedback from its clients. The solution could be the necessity of creation of the client services at the NSD. Economic efficiency of the repository, and it's very important question to the regulator. It's undefined long-term period. Information exchange with foreign repositories, and for regulator it's very important too. It's we're talking about necessity of EMEA compatibility. Aggregation of information of consolidated statistics. The solution could be creation of indexes and price series. And no problem using repository information and close-out netting purposes. And as I know, we have no examples of using, I think it was only one example of using close-out netting, but it was inside the Bank of Russia, I think. So if we look at Financial Stability Department functions directly, and what will we do? It would be monitoring of NSD's own risks, repository risks, consolidated position of financial conglomerates, money market analysis, and the information from we will look at the information that are storing at the repository in NSD, and using this information we will analyze the money market, also participants of this market too. Well, and aggregate trends on OTC market. And we have another department, it's Securities Market and Commodity Market Department, and for this department it's very important to provide prudential supervision for non-credit financial institutions. I mean, they will look through the separate market participants' position. Well, if we assess the concept implementation, I mean concept of trade repository in Russia, we have some perspectives to implementation of this concept in Russian legislation, and so what these perspectives are the following: future reduction of administrative load and financial market participant codes. Well, optimize the financial market participants' accounting and deletion of duplication of information provided to the Bank of Russia, providing the safety and confidentiality, observance of timeless completeness and data accuracy, and trade and data unification. Also availability of analytical instruments in aggregation form. So it was a brief presentation what is trade repository, and I think more detailed information my colleague Ekaterina will tell you. Wait a second. So thank you very much for the attention.
Hello colleagues, I'd like to tell about the ordinance of the Bank of Russia about repository regulation. And I want to present you some information about the future legislative development in this area. During 2014, the Bank of Russia has been working on improving the repository regulation. As you know, the first result of this work was Ordinance 3253, dated the 30th of April 2014. By this time, the Bank of Russia Ordinance 3382, dated the 17th of September 2014, has been developed. This ordinance came to force on the 1st of October 2014, excepting some rules about which I am going to tell later. At first, it's our first slide, the Bank of Russia determinate list of companies which have to send information to the repository. It is only Russian financial companies set up with the legislation of Russian Federation. For example, it's credit institutions, brokers, investment funds, insurance companies, and other financial organizations. This closed list you can see in ordinance and in my presentation. Corporations, individuals, and foreign companies don't have to send information to the repository. A foreign company can send information to a Russian repository or to foreign repository if they want to send it. Foreign companies will be able to take information in a foreign repository for closeout netting. It will be possible to realize in legislation. Next, and I'd like to tell about the situation when the central bank, when the Bank of Russia is a part of master agreement. If the central bank is a part of master agreement, there is no need to provide information about these agreements or other contracts with the central bank to the repository. And our next slide, second question about the list of the information which should be provided to the repository. Now, at first, it is only a contract concluded on the basis of a master agreement. You have to send information about repo agreement, FX swap, and financial derivative contracts. about financial derivative contracts, starting from the 1st of April 2015, financial derivative contracts should be provided to the repository. I'd like to tell a few words about CSA. CSA are not included into the list of contracts, the information on which should be sent to the repository. At the same time, the Bank of Russia has been working to include information of CSA to the repository. And in future, CSA will be able to be included in closeout netting. These contracts will not be qualified like financial derivative contracts. At the same time, the Bank of Russia is acting to amendments in the legislation according to which the liability of providing to the repository information without a master agreement. Companies should send information about single financial derivative contracts. Our next slide, the following amendments is about the liability for the parties of master agreement to provide the information to repository containing legal entity identifier. It will be necessary from 1st January 2015 for new contracts with repository and from 1st April 2015 for other contracts. It's all main information about our new ordinance. I can say about some other rules. Next rule is about time frame for providing quarterly statements. According to the ordinance, the time frame for providing has been extended up to 10 business days. Later it was 3 business days. At the same time, it has been discussing to set up the uniform terms for information, including all types of contract. In plans, it will be 3 business days. The ordinance includes some specific for determine an informing person. If we have only one party of master agreement which have to provide information to the repository, this party will be able to determine the informing person. I think it's the main part of information which I wanted to say, and thank you for your opinion.
Thank you, colleagues, for your presentation. Thank you for your speech. So now let's go. Let's skip to Yana and to NSD side and talk about the process for foreign clients, what they should do, the procedures for them.
So the foreign companies are not obliged to report, and they have the choice to be or not to be the client of NSD. If they are not a client, the Russian counterparty will report for both. If a foreign company has already become a client and still wants to participate in the registration process and to monitor what its counterparty reports, it can choose to remain a client. However, a client that is not obliged to report has the right to refuse to provide information to Russian repository. In this case, it should follow the instructions that are described in the NSD's terms and conditions. Firstly, if the client, foreign company, which is not obliged to report, it should provide the notification on rejection to submit information to the repository. Secondly, it should notify all its counterparties about this rejection. From this moment, all its counterparties have the rights and the opportunity to register all trades, all master agreements unilaterally. If the foreign company doesn't want to remain a client at all, it can terminate the agreement on terms and conditions for the provision of repository services. All the procedures are described in the repositories, in the NSD's terms and conditions. So if you want to be a client, you still have the right to participate in trade reporting in Russia. And if you don't want to do it anymore, don't want to monitor what is registered in Russian repository, you have the right to terminate the agreement with NSD. If you are not a client at all, you don't have to conclude any agreements with NSD because only the Russian counterparty should report. For foreign companies, as you maybe know, we have a special solutions. This is a web cabinet. It has English language version, so we also have English speaking support, and you can address all your questions in English at our email repository at nsd.ru. We also have our website in English, our repository section in English, where we publish also presentations in English. So welcome at our website, and we will provide you with all the support if you still would like to remain the client. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, colleagues, we received some questions from our clients. Let's talk about this. So the first question is: should foreign market participants report to trade repository?
I said that foreign company don't have to send information to the repository, and foreign company can provide this information if they want to do it for closeout netting. It may be a Russian repository or a foreign repository.
Thank you. Are only trades with derivatives are reportable? What other instruments should be reported, if any?
Now it's only repo agreements, FX swaps, and commercial derivative contracts. We have some plans about CSA contracts, but now you have to send information about only 3 types of contract.
Thank you. Our next question is: what can you tell about reporting derivatives on commodities?
There are no limits concerning commodities now. The list of derivative types will be determined in the ordinance of the Bank of Russia about types of derivatives in future.
Does the Bank of Russia plan to expand reporting obligation from trades concluded under master agreements only to single trades? When expect this?
Now you have to provide information only about contracts concluded under the master agreement. But in future, we have some plans about single contracts.
And should we report only OTC trades or on-exchange trades are also reportable in accordance with the new directive?
Our new directive includes only information only about OTC derivatives.
And the last question, what are the procedures for closeout netting in accordance with the Russian legislation? Will the netting procedures be affected if only one participant submits information to a trade repository?
Currently, the Bank of Russia has been working on same amendments of the Russian legislation in the part of closeout netting, but now closeout netting will be possible if all obligatory parties provide information to the repository.
And one question for you, Jana. Is there a fee for the clients who provide the notification and rejection?
When a participant is still a client, never mind it has provided a notification or not, it still has to pay all the fees. Only when it terminates the agreement with NSD, it won't be able to pay any fees. But before terminating the agreement, clients that are not obliged to report should provide this notification on rejection. So provide notification, then notify your counterparts, and finally terminate the agreement. However, you will not be obliged from the moment you have provided the notification on rejection.
There are no any other questions from our clients.
Well, is it possible to add some words?
Sure.
So, well, we have rather new regulation concerning recognition of financial market infrastructure as systemically important, and for NSD it's very good new that it was recognized according to this regulation as systemically important trade repository. And the information about this recognition you could find at official website of the Bank of Russia. And it was, I think, it was very important step in line of introduction of the trade repository into financial market of Russia Federation. And well, recognition as systemically important must help to the Bank of Russia to oversight for this trade repository, I mean NSD, and to provide special legislation for these organizations. So, well, I think it's very good news for you, and we'll work together to monitor you, to provide special regulations for systemically important financial market infrastructures like repositories, central counterparties, and etc.
Sure, I think you see this status in the systemically important, not only in repositories, but
yes, of course,
in other resources as well. So.
I would like to add that all our rules are described in the NSD's terms and conditions. For the provision of repository services, they are published at our official website. So all the details about reporting for parties that are not obliged to report are described in these terms and conditions.
Welcome to check it on our website. Give colleagues any comments from Ms. Jana. So I would like to thank you, our speakers from the central banking, for so detailed information about legislation, current situation, about plan changes, about the future, and our status as well. Thank you for the presentation. Jana, thank you for your review about processes for foreign clients, and thank you for being with us this time. If you still have any questions, you can contact me and send me email. My contact details are on website. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay.